Hello well-wishers and welcome to my channel Aspiring Minds. In today's video, we are going to do a beautiful short story called Thank You Ma'am, written by Langston Hughes. So grab your virtual seats and let's begin exploring. Langston Hughes was a famous African-American poet, novelist and playwright during the Harlem Renaissance. I will soon be making a video on what is Harlem Renaissance very soon that will help you in getting a better understanding and the real feel of African American literature. Now basically it was a cultural movement and it celebrated the African American experience. The works of Langston Hughes often focus on the issues of race, identity and social justice. To understand the story better, let's look at what is the setting of the story. The story is set on a late evening and it is an urban neighborhood, and the time is around the year 1930s when we'll see the characters now enacting the story in front of us. We have just two characters in this thought-provoking and beautiful story. That is, we have Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. She is a large, strong and compassionate woman, and she encounters a young boy who is trying to attempt or steal her purse. Okay, and the other character is Roger, the person who tries to steal the purse. He is a young, frail boy of around 14 or 15 years of age. Another interesting aspect of the story that I would like to mention to you just now, like a little teaser, is that basically the story is going to be moving around sweet shoes. Now the shoes are made of soft velvet leather, and you'll see the whole drama of the story actually taking place because of these shoes. We'll see how. I'm now going to start giving you a detailed understanding in point form of what the story is all about. So in the very beginning we see Roger encountering Mrs. Jones. So the story begins there, and Mrs. Jones is a large woman. She's walking alone late at night, and it is at this time when she's walking alone with her very huge purse. The story begins with a description of the woman and her purse, right? And it is at this time that Roger attempts to steal her purse, but he falls to the ground. After this, Mrs. Jones, instead of calling the police, decides to teach Roger a lesson. She kicks him and then makes him pick up her purse. Instead of making a hullabaloo about it, she just quietly tells him that you better pick up my purse. So you can see that Mrs. Jones is not at all afraid of this boy. For her first time, of course, she doesn't know him. It's like a thief. He's like a thief for him, but she doesn't get scared at all. And then Mrs. Jones questions Roger about his intentions, and it is this time that Roger admits that he did not intend to steal the purse. Soon Mrs. Jones decides that she is going to teach Roger a lesson. So she takes Roger with her to her house, ensuring that he does not run away. She remarks on his dirty face and appearance and promises that the first thing she wants to fix before even taking him to the police or anywhere for that matter is that she promises to wash his face, and since he has no one at home to take care of him, she is the one who is for the time being take care of him, because she has kind of identified with the boy's condition and therefore she has a kind of sympathy for her. So Mrs. Jones now reflects on her own past. She is reminded of her own past when she looks at the appearance of the boy and the mistakes that she too had made. This emphasizes that she too had a desire to have things which she did not have, and perhaps she too must have indulged in this act of stealing, and that is why when she encounters Roger, she knows his intentions and therefore she does not get scared of him but faces him courageously. Now after that we see that Mrs. Jones takes Roger to her home and she cooks a meal for him. She even makes him go to the sink, wash his face, and then she goes into the kitchen saying that let me fix something to eat for us tonight, because Roger tells that he does not have anyone to go back home to. He's all alone and he's of course hungry. So she goes to the kitchen and starts preparing something for them to eat, and she does not care whether Roger is going to run away or not. She does not even care to have an eye on him. But Roger is constantly looking at Mrs. Jones, thinking that maybe she's watching over him and maybe it is not wise for him to run away just like that. He even offers that if he can go and pick something up from the market for Mrs. Jones. So Mrs. Jones says that unless you want to have a special kind of milk or something, a sweet milk or something, you can go and of course buy it for yourself, but whatever I have, I think it should be sufficient for us. So Roger does not go anywhere. He's patiently waiting for Mrs. Jones to get the meal ready for them. After the meal, Mrs. Jones gives Roger $10 to buy himself a pair of blue suede shoes, and she advises him that from next time he must not steal, and he also warns him about the consequences, that this time you found a lady whom you were stealing from who understood you well, but in the future you may not find someone who understands you well and you might be taken to the police and be put behind the bars. So you can also see that somewhere or the other she is also trying to give Roger his respect, so that in the future he is not disrespected by being caught by the police for doing the wrong things. After this, Mrs. Jones opens the door for Roger and sends him on his way back home, advising him to behave himself in the future. Roger at this time is deeply emotional. You can imagine, if you try to put yourself in the feet of Roger, you'll imagine how much he must be feeling touched by this woman, because he literally has no one to go back home to. So he's got his meal, he's also got some money for the very reason for which he had been trying to steal, that is, he wanted his shoes. So he's got money for that and he's extremely grateful to Mrs. Jones, but all that he can say, even at the time of parting, is thank you, ma'am. He wanted to say so many things, but then he is ultimately able to utter just these 3 words, and that is how the story ends, on a beautiful note. There are 3 major themes of the story. One is compassion and redemption. The story highlights the capacity for compassion and the potential for redemption, even in those who have had mistakes. Just because someone has committed a mistake, that doesn't mean you will disrespect that person and provide hatred to that person. No, you can also sort out faults and flaws of a person by way of love, and also by teaching that person a lesson in a more humble way. Next, Mrs. Jones' decision to provide a meal and some money to Roger demonstrates the theme of generosity and the impact it can have in changing the lives of other people. Perhaps after this we will never see people like Roger indulging in robbery. And lastly, we see the lesson learned, that is, the story emphasizes the importance of learning from one's mistakes and the role that others can play in guiding young individuals towards the right path. Yes, it was necessary for Mrs. Jones to have experienced something wrong in her own life that made her compassionate and generous to further teach someone else who was perhaps doing the same mistake a lesson. And because she has been able to teach Roger a lesson, in the future, if Roger sees someone else doing something of this kind, he too would be trying to teach a lesson, and in that way he would be again thanking Mrs. Jones for it. So you can see how when you do something good, it multiplies in the correct manner, and therefore it brings about an element of change in the society. So the central message of the story is the power of compassion and understanding that can transform or bring about a change among the troubled youth. Mrs. Jones, despite being a victim of an attempted theft, chooses not to punish Roger, and she in turn takes this opportunity to teach him a valuable lesson about right and wrong. So, in Thank You Ma'am, Langston Hughes presents a powerful narrative that demonstrates how an act of kindness and understanding can change a young person's life for the better. Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones's compassion and her ability to offer guidance rather than punishment ultimately leaves a lasting impact on Roger, and the story serves as a reminder of the potential for positive change and transformation even in difficult situations of life. So that's it from this video. I hope you liked it. Do hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more such future updates. Thank you for watching. Bye.